everyone, and welcome to Unstoppable Conversations. And I have Robert in the house today. I am so excited to have him here. We will be talking to him about security. And I know that we all have questions about security from day to day. Robert, welcome to the house, and tell us a little bit about you, your business, and how do you help others?
Sure. So I provide security awareness training, which means that either online or in person, I get in front of people and educate and inform on how to reduce risk. So every phone call you get, email you receive, text message, right? Whenever we're engaged in digital lives, there's always somebody out there trying to fleece us. And we need to know what to do and how to reduce that risk, what to look out for, what links are okay to click, not okay to click, and so on. How to secure up your devices, antivirus, anti-spyware, anti-phishing, essentially how to become what I call the strategic human firewall, which essentially, strategic human firewall is someone who understands how to block deception. You know, it's essentially a proactive governance, a mindset that turns us from passive targets into essentially an active detection layer. It's the shift from I trust what I see to I verify everything.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about how would you help me as an entrepreneur and in words that I can truly understand as an individual that maybe I know nothing about security.
Yeah. Well, the good news is I don't speak tech. Okay. And so whoever I'm talking to, wherever they are in their personal, professional lives, I speak digital literacy, which basically means, how to get up to speed in regards to, your data and your devices and what your role and responsibility is from my point of view to protect the data in which you're entrusted with, either as an individual, personally or professionally as an employee, okay, or a business owner. And so the basics, right? Password management. Most of us, and I know this because I get in front of live audiences all the time, as much as 80 to 90% of us or more actually are using the same passcode across multiple accounts. And if you're using the same passcode across multiple accounts, what you need to understand is that there have been about 175 billion records compromised in the past 15, 20 years. So when I say 175 billion, I'm talking about like all of our names, all of our addresses, our social security numbers, our mobile phone numbers, our email addresses, and about 15 billion of our passwords are in the hands of criminals. So if you're using the same passcode across multiple accounts, it's likely that one of those accounts, if not many of those accounts, have had a data breach. Now, while you're not responsible for that data breach, the fact that that company got breached, whoever they were, means that your credentials, your usernames, often email addresses, and your passwords, if you're using the same one across multiple accounts, are now in the hands of criminals. So what they do is, with that same information that they download off the dark web, they don't necessarily hack you. They just log in to your various accounts that are using the same credentials, which is why it's so important to change up your passcodes. So what I instruct users on is, in order to make the data that the bad guys have access to on the dark web, again, your passcodes, is to change your passcodes, right? So that's an easy fix, right? Changing up your passcodes is a relatively easy fix. However, you've got to be using a different passcode across each of your accounts. So what's the best way to change them up and to facilitate a different passcode? Right, that's what everybody gets confused about. So easy enough, right? This is a mobile phone, obviously. I got to tell you, I don't know my mother's phone number. I don't know it. I don't know my dad's phone number. I never committed it to memory. I don't have to, because my phone, its contact manager, its contact list, stores it for me. The same way a password manager stores all my passwords. I don't know my passwords. My password manager knows them for me. So if you engage in a password manager, if you just do a quick search on Google for password manager, you'll see right there on the first page of search dozens of really good password managers that you can download. And for a really small fee, and sometimes free, essentially it attaches to your browser on your machine, right? On your laptop or desktop, even your mobile phone and tablet. And that password manager now manages your digital life. It manages all your passcodes for all your multiple accounts.
Okay, so once you get into this magical new app that we're going to put on everything, do we have to worry about someone getting into that file in getting all of our passwords?
Yeah, that's 100% of the time. That is the most common question, which I understand, right? So the likelihood of your password manager getting hacked is really, really, really slim. Really, really slim. Similarly, you put all your money in your bank account, right? And your bank account is online the same way the password manager is online, okay? And we maybe worry a little bit about our bank account getting hacked, but the banks spend billions of dollars to protect our data, our bank accounts on their servers. Similarly, password managers spend the necessary resources, engage in all kinds of cryptography to make sure that our data on their servers is properly protected. Actually, the low-hanging fruit in regards to our passwords is not hacking a password manager. It's just going to the dark web and grabbing your information that's already been exposed and downloading it and just logging in. I've been to the dark web multiple times. As a matter of fact, I've downloaded about 21 million stolen credentials. Why? Because I can. Because anybody can. And in my live presentations, I show the audience, this is what it looks like. These are those stolen records. And they see usernames and passcodes of people like me and you, including me. Like, my information is on the dark web and I show them, right? And so once you engage the password manager, you're actually bypassing all of that stolen data on the web, upgrading to credentials, passwords that are, secure.
Okay, so my next question is going to be, I'm not sure I'm accurate on this. It's so many times when we go in to put a password in, it will ask you, do you want to save your password? Now, is that putting it on in a secure area or no?
Okay, so when you're asked, do you want to save that password? There's one of two or three things happening there. So in my environment, like on my computer, generally what I see is, first and foremost, my password manager might be asking if I want to save it. That's on my end because I'm using a password manager. So the answer generally is yes, okay? The next thing, which I also see, which is probably what you're seeing, is your browser, like Google, Chrome, might be asking if you want to save that password in Chrome. Because Google has its own proprietary password manager. Yeah. Apple also has a proprietary password manager on Apple devices. So between Google Chrome or Apple's password manager, that might be where that question might be asked, okay? The third thing is a particular website you might be on might ask, do you want to save this password so that next time you visit the website, you can easily log in? That's generally your browser saving the password manager as a cookie. All that being said, I am not allowing Google or Apple to save my passcodes in the browser or in the Apple password manager. I am using a third-party password manager like RoboForm, LastPass, 1Password, Dashlane. There's a few of them, right? And so that way, that third-party password manager that I'm using is ubiquitous across all of my devices. So it's on my Windows machines, my Apple machines, it's on my mobile phone, it's on my tablets, it's on my Android phone. So that third-party password manager is what I recognize when I see that prompt, do you want to save this passcode? And it's the only place that I'm saving it. So I'm saying no when Google asks me, I'm saying no when Apple asks me, and I'm saying yes when my password manager asks me, because I want my passwords that I control to be in one place that I can access and manage whenever and wherever. That way I have full control and my passwords aren't spread out all over the place, which can get a little haphazard and a little out of control.
Right. And, I ask you that question, Robert, because I feel like most people out there thinks it's secure when Google asks us, do we want to save your password?
So Google is secure. And if all you use is Google, if that's all you use for everything, for all of your web browsing, if you don't use Microsoft's Edge, if you don't use Safari, if you're, only using Google for everything, then that would make sense. Sure, go ahead, go for it. I will say that it does have limitations. Inevitably, it has limitations because once you start using your mobile phone has apps. And you're not going to be able to use Google's password manager to access your, Bank of America app, to access your American Express app. because Google's password doesn't talk to your mobile phone's apps. It only works in the browser, and it may only work on your laptop or desktop, and it may not work as effectively on your mobile phone. That being said, I like a password manager that talks to my laptop, my desktop, my mobile phone. It works across browsers. It works across operating systems. It's more ubiquitous. It's smart versus, Google's password manager doesn't necessarily communicate with all that different hardware, software, applications, and so forth.
That's awesome. That's awesome to know, because you're right. When I go from my laptop and I'm running out of the door with my cell phone, they don't talk to each other when it comes to those passwords.
Right.
Now I have to remember those passwords. That's not happening at my age. I'm not remembering as much now as I did in my 30s, Robert. I'm sorry, but I'm just not. And so then I'm thinking, okay, what was that password to the bank account? Because now I need to make a transfer really quick. And now I can't make it because I can't get in to my own bank account.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating.
Yeah. So LaDonna, that is 90+% of the general population are in the exact same boat. And the beauty is this is an easily fixable problem. And once we fix that problem, which is essentially adopting a password manager and spending the time on it. Once you install it on your browser, on your computer, you install it on every other computer that you access the web with. You install it on every other device that you use digitally, like a mobile phone. And so once you do that and you begin to train yourself and the password manager to recognize each of the websites that you visit on a regular basis, and one by one, you begin to change up those passcodes, because that's very important because, like I said, 15 billion passwords on the dark web is not a good thing. So if you're using the same passcode across multiple accounts, you want to change them as you go. And so once we engage in that process, what you're going to see is, yes, there's a little bit of a learning curve to learn how the password manager works and how it interacts with the various devices and browsers and so forth. But before you know it, and I'd say after a couple of weeks of maybe a little bit of struggle, maybe a little bit of a learning curve, maybe a little of getting up to speed, before you know it, you wonder, how have I functioned without a password manager all these years? Because the efficiency, the time it saves you, how easy it is. In my personal and professional life, I find that my password manager is the absolute best use of my time and my money for my safety, security, and my general digital administration, Additionally, something that people don't necessarily want to think about, but, there is going to be a day where I'm going to perish. It's going to happen, okay? And when I do, hopefully not for 20, 30 years at least, when I do, my wife and my kids have access to everything. They have access to every account online, all of my, credit cards and bank accounts and investments and Gmail and Google and Apple and everything. That way, when I go, they have access to all of my accounts that have funds where they can turn off various payments if necessary that I might no longer need to be made because I'm no longer here. And they have access to get all the investment money that is due to them. So there is a form of a level of continuity in my afterlife that allows my family access to everything. And I've also told them, this is kind of important, is to also pay for this thing, the mobile phone, pay the bill while I'm gone, when I'm gone, because you might need access to my mobile phone for two-factor authentication for the various accounts that require it.
That is an awesome idea. I would have never thought about that.
Yeah.
And most people, I think, wouldn't think about that. And then we would automatically get that phone cut off because we no longer need it. We don't think.
Yeah.
But it's true. Every time I try to log into my bank account, guess what? They want a different ID on it. I have to give them that 5 or 6 number ID code that they're going to send to only my phone. And you're right. I never would have thought about that.
All these technologies that we enjoy today have only been around for 20 plus years, if that. Mobile phones, smartphones, 20-ish years, if that. iPhone, 2000, 5, 6, if that, And all of the ways in which we engage our digital lives, bank accounts, investment accounts, email for that matter, we rely extremely heavily on everything. too much. The days of paper essentially are over. And so, often in my presentations, when I get in front of a group, I joke and I say, hey, listen, if you don't understand this stuff, just find yourself a 14-year-old, they'll fix it for you,
Exactly.
And everybody laughs, as you are right now.
Yeah.
And I say to them, it is kind of funny, but I don't know that we should any longer rely upon that or even joke about it for that matter. I think we've kind of got to the point now in our culture and in our personal and professional lives that I think it's time that we get a handle on this in such a way where we're no longer intimidated by it, because it can be intimidating, and that we learn the basics so that going forward, we've got such a handle on it that we no longer worry about these things, but we've taken action to the point where we've got control over this stuff. And we no longer wonder how and why, but we actually have the answers. And the beauty of all of this is that now with AI, with Google's Gemini and ChatGPT, there isn't a question that you ask that can't be effectively answered with these tools. So I haven't been asking those questions via Google for 35 years. Now with AI, you can ask the question 10 different ways and you're going to get a really good answer. So anything at all that you want answers to, asking Google's Gemini or ChatGPT, no matter how you ask that question, you're going to get the answer pretty quick. And the large language model will point you in a direction pretty efficiently so that going forward, you know what to do. Obviously, bringing somebody like me in to have an hour and a half dialogue, in front of 100 people as employees or coworkers or at an association is additionally another effective way to get all those questions asked and answered.
Absolutely. And you brought up a really good point is, over the last 25-ish years, our electronics have changed. When I was raising my girls, they were teenagers in the late 90s. We bought this very expensive cell phone. You had to pay by the minute. There wasn't a monthly fee. It was very expensive. Every minute you spent on the phone, it was quite expensive to listen to your daughter at the other end. But we did it so that we could talk to them when they're away from home, or they could talk to us. And we kind of knew where they were. There was no tracking device. There was no 360 tracking or Apple tracking. Now I can track my grandchildren to the house that they are standing in, period. Yeah. Things have changed over the years. When it first came out, we were just using it for personal freedom. What word can I use? That it was non-essential.
Right.
We didn't use it for bank accounts. We didn't use it for work. It was all just personal. Oh, now I know my husband's at work. He called me to tell me. My daughter's at the movies. She called to tell me type thing.
Yeah.
But now we do everything on these electronic devices. Everything. Yeah. Everything under the moon is in this phone. And like I said, I can track where everyone is. I know what's going on in my bank account. Every time something's withdrawn, it chimes and tells me, hey, something just came out of your bank account. And it just goes down to the defined little things that we take for granted now that we didn't have back in the day 15-ish years ago. That's how much it has grown. So security is so important, folks. Get your security in place. Now, before we go, Robert, is there anything else that you feel like, I know there's lots of things, but what is the next thing that's so important with your security advice?
My dad is what will be considered a baby boomer, okay? My dad, worked as a union pipe fitter for 40 plus years. Annuity, pension, right? Investments. He understood compounded interest, right? Put the money in the bank, it grew, right? Paid off his mortgage. My dad is worth somewhere in the 7 figures, because he worked his entire life and he had and has enough to live the rest of his life. And he has extra, which means that when he perishes, that money is likely going to be going to me and my siblings, okay? They call that transfer of wealth from the baby boomers to the younger generations, the largest transfer of wealth in the history of mankind. And it's worth about $124 trillion, okay? And that generation, boomers, greatest generation, they are the most moneyed on the planet. They are the most trusting left on the planet. They are the least technically savvy and, like all of us to a degree, cognitively declining. Bad actors are targeting that wealth as we speak, okay? They're going after my parents, grandparents, and so forth. And so knowing that, and knowing that that generation has all that money, cognitively declining, not technically savvy, not good at passwords and all that stuff, we need to educate them on what to look out for. For wealth managers, that's your clients. Knowing the basics, what to do, how to react when you get a phone call, when you get an email, when you get a text message, what to do when you get those wrong number text messages. Hey, Robert, are we supposed to meet for lunch tomorrow? I'm sorry, who's this? And so on. Going forward, understanding what's happening and how these scammers are targeting our most vulnerable populations, right? Who in many cases work for us, right? It's important understanding what that risk is and how to protect them, how to protect ourselves, how to communicate this information effectively. Because no matter where you are in your personal or professional life, we are all targets of this stuff. And engaging in basic 101 risk management going forward, again, to protect yourself and the people that you are responsible for, your loved ones and so on, your employees, I think it's absolutely essential. And it's easy. That's the good part. It's easy. The discussion we've had today, nothing that we've discussed is over anybody's head. It's just a matter of engaging in this process and just kind of like, you know, when you get that pop up, when you have this request, when you see what's going on here, just kind of like wrap your head around it, spend some time with it, and like kind of like settle down and just really learn it. And before you know it, you'll get it and it'll all make sense to you. That's it.
That's awesome. I love that advice. I love it. And you are so right. The baby boomers is where it's all at right now. Right now, that's where everyone's targeting. And it is. You're right. And it's hard to believe someone would want to come into someone's lives and affect it in that manner. But we all know they're out there and they're coming for you one way or another. If they can get to you, they're going to. So Robert, with that said, I want to say goodbye to everyone. Thank you so much for being in the house, Robert. This has been a phenomenal teaching so that we can learn and be more aware.
LaDonna, last thing, right? I tell all my audiences, don't worry about any of this stuff. Don't worry about any of it, but do something about it, right? Just do something about it and then you'll be fine. And the best way to find me, like I'm online like everybody else. If you can spell Siciliano, just research me, right? I'm on all the socials. I'm also at protectnowllc.com. Again, that's protectnowllc.com. And I send out a newsletter with all this information. I'm on LinkedIn, and I have like 15,000 people that read my LinkedIn newsletter. The idea is to keep up to speed on how to manage this risk, and you'll be fine.
Perfect. And everyone out there knows that we will have this on YouTube in just a few days. And you can always find that at LaDonna McAbee. And enjoy Robert's podcast. Enjoy so many others that you will learn so much from. Thank you so very much. Until next time, have a beautiful day.